Taylor Swift, forgive me, God, for what I'm about to say. This woman is on a whole other level. We're talking about a pop star who doesn't just shake up the music industry. She practically moves entire national economies. So here's the question everyone loves to argue about. Did her dad basically buy her career, and is he still bankrolling it behind the scenes? Or is this just a genuinely gifted kid who's been grinding in the industry for almost 20 years and somehow still hasn't slowed down, and honestly might just take over the entire planet at this point? And is it actually true that only teenage girls listen to her? Because my God, what even is the Taylor Swift phenomenon at this point? All right, let's stop pretending I don't have opinions here. I clearly do, and that's exactly what today's video is about. So, Taylor Swift was born December 13th, 1989, in West Reading, Pennsylvania. She comes from a family of career finance people, which is exactly why the internet loves throwing the term Nepo baby at her. Honestly, though, I don't think that label really fits. To me, Nepo baby should be reserved for people whose parents already made it big in the exact same industry their kid ends up in. Taylor, kind of like Ariana Grande actually, just had the money situation handled from day one. And look, good for them, genuinely. Whatever raw talent a kid has, having the freedom to enter competitions, go to good schools, and actually be around creative people gives you a massive head start. Take two equally talented people. And let's be real, the one who isn't stressing about money is going to have better odds every single time. Ariana's mom, for what it's worth, ran an ad agency, and her dad wasn't exactly broke either. So just like with Taylor, her parents could afford to invest in her future instead of telling her to go get a real job first. If I had to sum up Taylor's whole creative engine, I'd say it's this: insane work ethic, real talent, a good bit of luck, an incredible team, and parents who were absolutely relentless about making this happen. Take away any one of those ingredients, and I genuinely don't think it works. Taylor spent most of her childhood on a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania, one her dad actually bought off one of his own clients. Now, hearing "grew up on a farm," you might picture a pretty average middle-class upbringing. But then you find out her dad was one of the top brokers in the country with serious connections in both business and politics. And suddenly, the picture looks a little different. From basically the moment she could walk, Taylor was surrounded by music and instruments. She won her first competition at 11, learned guitar at 12, started writing poetry and performing her own songs as a kid. She was already taking vocal and acting lessons in New York, which meant she and her mom were making that commute constantly. Songwriting lessons, too. So by the time she was still a kid, she already knew, without a doubt, that she wanted to be on stage. Funny enough, acting came first. She wanted to be an actress, but that didn't pan out, so she pivoted to singing. And honestly, you can still see that acting background in her music videos. She fully commits to whatever role she's playing, and she's genuinely fun to watch. Massive respect to her parents here, because they didn't just cheer her on from the sidelines. They believed in her enough that her dad literally transferred jobs from Pennsylvania to Hendersonville, Tennessee, just to give her a real shot at breaking into country music on its home turf. And while we're on the subject, there's been some off-the-record chatter that her dad is still just as hands-on with her career today as he was back then. Like, very controlling. Anyway, as a teenager, Taylor was already competing in country music contests left and right, while her dad worked every angle trying to get her signed. On top of all that, she was modeling on the side too, all while still chasing the singing career. Her big breakish moment came when she sang the national anthem at the 2003 U.S. Open, which caught the attention of a music manager named Dan Dimtrow, the same guy she'd later bragged to about her own managerial instincts in a letter that ended up leaking. Her parents started working with him, and through that connection, Taylor landed an Abercrombie and Fitch campaign called Rising Stars. Her song The Outside also made it onto a Maybelline compilation CD, which helped open doors with major labels. Not a bad start at all for a young artist whose fan base at that point was basically just teenage girls. After she performed some original songs for RCA Records, they signed her. There's even this story about her meeting Britney Spears backstage at one of Britney's shows, where teenage Taylor picked up a guitar and sang her an original song right there. Britney was charmed and told her she had a huge future ahead. Talk about calling it early. But let's be honest, you don't just casually end up in a superstar's dressing room getting 10 minutes of her time without some serious connections working behind the scenes. Before Taylor ever built out her team of publicists and managers, she was, in a lot of ways, one giant business project run by her dad. I will never get tired of saying this. It makes an insane difference when parents genuinely believe in their kid. But belief alone isn't enough. It helps just as much when they back that belief with actual money, pull them out of the traditional school grind, and just say, go for it. If that leaked letter is anything to go by, her dad apparently went through a lot because his wife, who he'd later divorce in 2012, constantly made him feel small, told him to dial it back, basically tried to hold him back while he was out there pushing their daughter's career forward, which, reading between the lines, tells you Taylor's mom was just as controlling in her own way, with her own very specific vision for how her daughter's career should go. And honestly, that level of parental control over a kid's life could have gone horribly wrong. We've all watched former Disney stars completely implode under the weight of a career and a set of expectations that started way too early. But somehow, that never happened to Taylor. Maybe her parents actually let her rest sometimes instead of running her into the ground, which is probably why she never grew to resent music. But if you believe the insiders, that upbringing shaped her into someone who's now a total control freak, in the best possible way. Everything runs like clockwork. There's a plan for every scenario, and anyone or anything that could hurt her gets cut out. No hesitation. Honestly, in this industry, that's a genuinely useful skill to have. My only hope is that her mental health can keep up with all of it. And from where I'm sitting, it seems like she's doing okay. At least, I really want to believe that. Anyway, back to the career. At 15, she walked away from RCA Records because they wanted her singing other people's songs, and she'd have had to wait until she turned 18 to even release a debut album. Taylor, on the other hand, felt ready to launch her own material right then and there. I mean, of course she did. She'd been taking songwriting lessons from established country legends since she was a little kid. Why would she sing someone else's songs when she already had that talent herself? So she ended up signing with Big Machine Records, becoming one of the very first artists on the label's roster. That 13-year deal handed the label ownership of the master recordings for her first 6 albums, in exchange for a cash advance she badly needed at the time. And man, if only she'd known just how much that decision would come back to haunt her later. In August 2006, her debut single Tim McGraw dropped, co-written with Liz Rose, who happened to be the same songwriting teacher she'd learned from originally. The label was still so new at that point that Taylor and her mom were literally the ones stuffing CDs into envelopes and mailing them out to radio stations themselves. Now that's determination. She spent most of that year doing what's called a radio tour, basically going station to station, playing her music in person, and asking to get airtime. She was out there hustling for her own career, chasing interviews and TV spots wherever she could get them. Obviously, with a schedule like that, normal school wasn't really an option, so she switched to a private, homeschool-style setup. Honestly, I don't think that bothered her much because, and this is kind of sad, she wasn't exactly popular back in regular school. Kids can be cruel. That's just how it goes sometimes.